Hey guys, welcome back to 52 Drinks in 52 Weeks. This week, we guys are celebrating the World Malbec Day on 17th of April. So you can guess what's the topic of the chat today. This grape variety is also called Cote, Brissac, and Auxerrois Noir in Bordeaux.
Well, lots of stories, and a popular but unconfirmed theory says there was a Hungarian peasant who introduced the grape to France. Well, we don't buy that entirely, but the viticulturist and ampelographer Pierre Gallet, he notes and says that Cote was the original name for the grape, and most likely it originated in Burgundy.
There is a local grape variety there called Auxerrois Blanc, so it makes sense that probably it would have come from Burgundy. Irrespective of where it came from, it did make Bordeaux its first popular home. And it didn't stay there for a very long time. There were consecutive catastrophes there. The phylloxera set in 1850, then pouty mildew came in 1880. And since then, the count of Malbec in the area kept on reducing. And the final nail in the coffin was the frost of Bordeaux, the very famous frost of Bordeaux in 1956, where this thin skin, dot prone grape variety was just asked to leave the area finally.
And so Malbec packed bags and again left, and this time it went further south and more inland. So it was away from the diurnal effect of the sea. It was also away from this frost. And this is the place called Cahors. Cahors in French is one of the AOCs, and the wines from Cahors have to be 70% Malbec, can be blended with some Merlot, which is very smooth and silky, and a very, very tannic Tannat grape. Go further up north, that's another home for the grape, and it mixed with Cabernet Franc and with Gamay to give you some kind of fruity but fruit-driven light wines, and also the sparkling wines of Saumur.
So while it was trying to find a secondary home in France, it also decided to venture outside of the continent. And in 1853, the president of Argentina asked, who is now considered the father of viticulture, Michael Aimé Pouget, to take care of the vineyards. And amongst many other things that he did, he brought a clone called Malbec Argentino, which is a much stable, much higher quality clone than what was grown in Bordeaux. And from there onwards, it called it its home in no good time.
And well, it grew and how by the late 19th, early 20th century, Criolla Grande, Cereza, all these areas were being completely run over by Malbec. And not just to make jug wine, which was the sort of the norm till then. It started changing now. People wanted to make bottled in origin wine. Malbec was a big component of that. And this was the first step in the right direction to put Malbecs and Argentinian wines on the world map.
And talking about drawing international attention, a lot of big producers from Bordeaux started investing and creating their wines in Argentina, in the Andes mountain. We have a very famous wine called Cahors, which is a joint venture between Nicolas Catena and Chateau Lafite Rothschild. So the CA from Catena and the Aro from Rothschild comes together. Then there is another one called Cheval des Andes, which is by Chateau Cheval Blanc and LVMH, both Hennessy. And not just producers, they were also celebrity winemakers like Michel Rolland, who doesn't need any introduction. He also started his winery here called Yacuchoya. And then he started another one with the help of a lot of well-known French producers called Clos de los Siete.
And these are some of the regions where you will find this grape. But apart from that, look at right next to us in Chile, where they have Carmenere, but they have 6,000 hectares dedicated to Malbec. France has 5,300 hectares back again now, growing it. And you look further west to California, Washington State, and America always had lots of Malbec. And then the prohibition sort of dropped the quantity. But even now it's come back and it's seen in a lot of meritage style blends, which are Bordeaux blends outside of the Bordeaux. And then if you go down south, in Southern Hemisphere, South Africa has it, Australia, New Zealand, it's everywhere. But Gagan, you were there recently. What's the scene of Malbec in India?
Well, Malbec did come to India. Sula was using Malbec for their very well-known label called Sartori. And Valone Vineyards made a reserve-style single varietal Malbec as well. However, India is prone to this virus called the leaf roll virus. And Malbec is one of the most fragile grapes to that virus. And eventually they came together and Malbec had to be uprooted. That is not to say that it might not come back ever, but for now, Malbec count in Nasik is very, very low.
So are you tasting one from India, or from where are you tasting one from?
I am tasting a wine which is available in India, called Pampas del Sur, but this is a reserve wine from Argentina, which is somewhere around 2,200 rupees in Delhi. What are you
Okay,
tasting?
I have this here. This is a house called Venduri, and it's an Australian wine. Opened earlier. I don't have the same bottle here, but I'm tasting that. It's already poured out and kept one last portion.
Right.
So both are new world houses of Malbec. Let's try how they work.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, virtual cheers.
Yeah, you go first.
Mm. So Malbec is known for its supple tannins and mouth-watering acidity, which gets further accentuated as it climbs up the mountain. A lot of people say Malbec actually performs its best when it crosses the 1100-meter mark. And it is not very surprising to know that in a hot country like Argentina, which is predominantly a desert, high quality wines are made because you have the Andes mountain. And it is said that one of the highest mountains in the world are in the Andes mountain at 3,300 meters, and they are planted with Malbec. So I think what I see in my wine is very soft, juicy, supple tannins, a good amount of acidity. There's a little bit of grippiness from the oak, and then comes in all of these dark fruits, dark berries, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of that tobacco is emerging. So the back of the wine is still sort of like holding the promise of it to develop. What do you see from Australia?
There's an altitude wine. It's Clare Valley. So again, you've got the same height, but it's got a lot more grittiness to it. So it's very coffee and sort of floral. So lavender and coffee at the same time. But it's got a bit of a touch of earth to it, but a lot of blueberries, a lot of mulberries. So very fruity, touch of florals, and then a lot of that coffee base to it. So it's kind of like a fairly rich wine, even for like a cool climate, South Australian style, but it's not extremely overdone. That's for sure. It's really, really good. Lots of age ahead of it, but this is the last glass,
Yeah.
bottle gone. That's all I
This is
have.
a 2015, so I see there's a lot of promise in this one. I don't know if in case that can be said for Malbecs across the across the board. But one thing is for sure that I've not come across a lot of people who taste Malbec and say, "Nah, this is not my cup of tea or my glass of wine."
Well, right now we're just lucky we have bottles of or something of Malbec to try at home. So please enjoy the
Yeah.
rest of it again. And
So,
yep.
so happy World Malbec Day to you, and we see you on the other side.
Cheers.
Yes.